Hello? Mr. Coe's residence? Yes, hold on. Boss? Mr. Hawk is on the phone. He said he just boarded the Cosmic Sponge Learjet for his trip to Richmond, and he wanted to let you know he found your sunglasses.
Is he still there? Here, give me the phone. Let me talk to him. Hey, man, are you all set for your trip?
Hey, Jimmy. Yes, the crew's loading my mobile studio even as we speak. I'm sorry to have to record the podcast while I'm on the road, but I really couldn't find any other time. Have you put together an agenda?
This week, we're going to start off with our news stories like we normally do, and then we're going to be covering the mysterious William Rhodes UFO photographs. They were the ones taken in 1947, a few weeks after that famous Kenneth Arnold sighting that kicked off the modern UFO phenomena.
Oh, yeah, that'll be a good one, man. Yeah, and Mr. Rhodes himself was quite an interesting individual. That'll make a really great topic.
Excellent. So all your stuff's packed, right? You've got everything you need for the podcast? Didn't forget anything?
Sure, man. Don't worry. Smalls packed everything. I should be good to go.
Smalls was the one that forgot my sunglasses.
Oh.
Are you still there?
Welcome to Cosmic Sponge, the podcast where we talk about UFOs and other weird wonders in the world. I'm Stephen Hawk.
And I am Jimmy Coe.
Tonight, we are on the road, live from Richmond, without a microphone.
Well, one of us is.
Yeah. So, listeners, in case you're wondering why I have such a hollowed out, echoey voice, it's because I didn't bring my microphone. I'm traveling. I'm in Richmond in a hotel for a business trip. This was the only night that Jimmy and our schedules coincided in order to do this weekly podcast. I brought my audio interface. I brought my mic cable. I brought my mic stand. I brought my headphones. I brought everything except my microphone. Now you have the joy of hearing me on my laptop microphone.
I won't use the word joy.
Well, that's why you're going to be doing most of the talking on this one, Jimmy.
Chatting it up.
And also, man, I got to take my pants off, man. It's just scorching in here. I had to turn the air conditioner off because it's like right beside where I am. So, give me a minute here.
Just keep that camera from the waist up.
Well, Jimmy, I guess let's get this thing started. What has been going on in your world since last week?
Well, for ages, man has been in pursuit of the Sasquatch, this legendary ape-like creature many have said inhabit the forest of North America. Now residents in the town of Cuyahoga Falls, I think that's in Ohio, are joining the hunt, but this time for a known presence of this creature, a statue that stood outside of Jimmy's backyard barbecue. Yes, someone that's also named after me, Jimmy's Backyard Barbecue. Aptly named Mr. Sasquatch, this critter was taken off of his stand by someone in a Ford Explorer in the early morning hours. They unbolted him from his platform, tossed him in the vehicle, and drove off. And now there is a search out for him. APB, man. So if anybody out there knows who took this stolen Sasquatch, who stole this Sasquatch, you're a jerk. Whoever you are, you're a jerk. Return it. Come on, man. Now, the owners of the shop, they're offering a $1,000 reward. No questions asked. Just return the guy. Just return him. He's a gorgeous-looking guy, and you should just do the right thing, man. Come on.
Yeah, man. Bring the Sasquatch back. Come on.
Yeah, bring the Sasquatch back. 2021.
I mean, what are you going to do with a Bigfoot statue? A stolen Bigfoot statue, right?
Oh,
I mean,
I can think of a million things. You going to fence it
at a pawn shop? I mean,
No,
is there an underworld market, for stolen Bigfoot statues, Sasquatch statues?
To be fair, if I had him in my house, I would be dressing him up. He'd be wearing pants. He'd be wearing your pants that you have to take off every time you go somewhere.
Oh, man. It's hot in here, man. I'm in Richmond. It's a lot hotter here than it is at home,
They don't have AC.
Is that too many lights in the background, by the way?
Oh, no, you're gorgeous. Yeah, they're not blowing out your face or anything. You actually, you do look younger than me.
Yeah, who looks blue this week? I look yellow.
You look yellow, I look blue. We'll mix them together. We'll have a what does that give you? Green?
Yeah. All right. So
What do you
I've
got?
got a story for you. This one's pretty neat. This one comes from the Black Vault. Again, the Black Vault is run by John Greenwald, and he files countless Freedom of Information Act requests, FOIAs, in other words. He has tons of stuff on here. It has a lot of UFO related material. That's how he got started. He's been doing it for years and years. He did a FOIA request wanting to have the press releases for the recent UFOs. And he just posted these to his website. I think he just posted this on the 9th of September, I think. I found this pretty interesting. I love reading the government documents. It's kind of weird, I know, but I wanted to get in here like this, in other words, these are, this is what they call a briefing card. Okay. And this one's dated September 19th, 2019. What this would be is it's sort of like what they pass out to officials within the government if they're asked a question about the UFO or the UAP thing, right? Like this is what their answers should be, right? In other words, this is the official government line here. So it says here as a header, and there's some other stuff in here, and it's talking about unmanned aerial systems, but it says media interest, a History Channel program over the summer on government investigations into UFOs, quote, quote, highlighted several videos from the Navy aircraft of unidentified aerial phenomenon, UAP. The program generated significant interest in limited reach outlets that focus on UFO theories and conspiracies. These same videos had been published by the New York Times in December 2017 via an unauthorized release. Heretofore, neither DoD or the Navy had confirmed whether the videos were actual Navy videos. The Navy has now confirmed that those are Navy videos showing UAPs. So that's the official line there. So top, and it says here, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it says top messages that you convey. Safety of our air crews is paramount. Any incursions into military airspace and training ranges are safety and security concerns. We take reports of incursions seriously and investigate each report. So questions. Did the videos show UFOs? The 3 videos shows incursions into our military training ranges by unidentified aerial phenomena. These videos are copies of original Navy footage taken by Navy personnel. The Navy has characterized the observed phenomena as unidentified. Of note, neither Department of the Navy nor the Department of Defense has officially released these videos to the general public. We'll skip that one. Question 4 says, what happens with the investigation of the aviator reports? Can we see them? The information obtained in each individual report or suspected training range incursion will be investigated in its own right. The information obtained in these reports will be cataloged and analyzed for the purpose of identifying any hazard to military aviators. And a few questions about the videos. There's some other briefing cards here too, but they all kind of say the same thing, basically. But I thought it was kind of interesting. The government passed these things out, I guess, to anyone that maybe asked these questions, I suppose, for press briefings and that sort of stuff. So,
yeah, well, there you go. Yeah. Mystery solved.
There you go. And every one of them always says safety of our air crews is paramount. And like everything starts
paramount.
With that,
it
is paramount. Sorry, paramount. Potato.
Tomato.
The term UAP, we borrowed the term from the United Kingdom.
Cheese keys.
An aerial phenomenon that cannot immediately be identified is what a UAP is. We use the generic UAP term in communication so as not to prejudge the results of any investigation, and so aviators are not hesitant to report unidentified intrusions.
Right. Well, I'm actually okay with the UAP thing versus the UFO thing.
I think they should switch back to flying saucers. It's a lot cooler. You have to admit.
It is cooler. We're going to be talking about that tonight for sure. But, on the tails of your story, my next story is William Morrow sets a memoir deal on Lou Elizondo, former head of the U.S. UFO program. So HarperCollins signed up Lou Elizondo to write a book about his experiences in ATIP, as well as, I think, maybe what occurred before it, what his service was before it, to the extent that he's allowed to do that. He was in counterintelligence, right? So And he's always on a lot of these shows saying, I can't divulge certain information because I'm under the thumb of the government, where I have to be careful about what I say for national security reasons, which,
Right.
I guess...
Which drives me a little crazy, personally.
Well, it drives a lot of us crazy, but I mean, he has an oath to his country and to the service, and I sort of get that, man. I'm not a military guy myself, so I'm going to give him a lot of leeway here, man.
Here's my thing, okay? He's on TV, and he's like, man, these things are real. I don't know what they are. I'm just saying. And then people are like, what are you basing that on? I can't say. But if you've seen what I've seen, you'd know they were real, or they were this, or they were that. Well, what is that? Well, I can't say, man. It's the government, And I just find that
frustrating for sure.
Like, I just got to take his word for it. I mean, I guess it's the way it always is, right? I mean, a sighting's taking someone's word for it.
Yeah, until you actually have the evidence, right? Sitting in front of you and you understand it. If this stuff is coming off of naval electronic surveillance equipment, you sort of got to understand more than just that it came from there. You have to understand how the stuff operates, what's the possibility that there's a software glitch or a hardware glitch, or that there's not a glitch at all, but what it's capturing is maybe presenting natural occurrences in a more than natural or supernatural way, just by the nature of the software and hardware. I thought that was interesting. He's got a book deal now, so he maybe make a little bit of money.
The quest for more money.
Well, he's probably not, he retired from his job with the government. He needs to have some kind of work, and, it's good as any.
I imagine the job from the History Channel paid much better.
Yeah, probably. I don't know. I don't know how that worked. I don't know if...
What he really needs to come up with is a little Lou Elizondo doll.
Oh, I'd buy one.
With karate chop action.
Lou, if you're hearing this, man, all love for me, and I would love to see that doll, and I would buy 10 of them. Unless you price them at $100 piece, and then I got to
only buy 2.
I got to feed the family. Yeah, then I'd only buy 5.
Or maybe instead of karate chop action, it should have like a little pair of binoculars, and like whenever you push the button on the back, it goes like that. Just pushes the binoculars up to his eyes.
I would buy that one too.
And his mouth goes open.
You are a marketing genius. So, you got anything else? I've got several other stories.
Not really. I thought mine was going to take a little bit longer than that, but I decided not to just read a bunch of boring government documents. So,
well, get ready for this one. This is global, baby. We're going over the pond, over to the Great Britain. So, some prisoners of Her Majesty's Prison Services at the Verne, that's the name of the prison, in Dorset, England, observed a UFO, and subsequently inmates came out with a red rash the following day. One prisoner said, one prisoner said, I do not believe in the supernatural or aliens from Mars. Actually, he probably says something, I don't believe in the supernatural or aliens from Mars. But what we recently saw here in this prison was some very strange things, and it leaves me speechless. and then another recounted the incident, saying, this object started to come closer and closer until it was actually over the exercise area at about... Stop laughing. About 100 feet or so above us. We were, by this time, all including officers, standing with their heads tilted back and looking at the strange thing. Then the object started to shrink and collapse in on itself until it sort of just dissolved into a cloud of mist. Then it started raining on us, and the next day we all came out with a red rash. So that happened in Dorset, England. They don't know what to make of it. What I found fascinating about this, they actually have a magazine that comes out. It's called the Inside Times.
There's prison magazines. I knew about that.
I did not. Just so what do you think about that? What do you think about prisoners getting rained on and coming out with rashes from UFOs?
I just wonder what kind of articles they have in there. It's like, how to press your license plate faster. I mean, what? How not to let them take your block. Don't let the screws mess with you. I mean, what is it?
Different materials to hide your drugs in before you put them up your bum.
How to hoop style.
Prison life. It's tough out there. I have one more item, and then I'm done.
Just for the record, I couldn't understand a damn word you were saying when you were doing your English accent. So
fair enough.
May need a transcript on that one, man.
I have some content controls down at the bottom so people can see it.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Yeah, so I did find this site, which I'll post on with this episode. There's now an interactive map of all the ghosts of West Virginia. And it's a West Virginia Explorer, yeah, and you can go to all the locations with all the different spooky things out there in the world of West Virginia. So I thought maybe we could post that, and then after we have some time to read up on it, we could comment, maybe pick one of the places on there and go visit it. What do you think?
Okay, yeah, I'd be down with that actually. I was thinking a little bit about that whenever, Heather was on last week. Do you remember when I specifically said that I didn't want to go to Adams, Tennessee? Well, my wife listened to the episode yesterday.
You're going to Adams, Tennessee.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I've got to go. We got to go. I want to see the Bell Witch Cave. I want one of those dolls. And I'm like, okay, I guess.
Travelocity.
It'll be a good news story. Podcaster disappears or falls through a portal or something. I guess.
I remember when Steve had two eyes. Right. So anyway, you can go over and see that map at haunts.wvghost.com. wvghost.com. Yeah.
And what would be really neat about that is, as we've talked about on the show before, I ride a motorcycle. So often as a motorcyclist, we're given a hard time, especially like I ride a dual sport or do some adventure riding, as they call it. We're always looking for destinations, right? Because it's really not about the destination. It's about the journey, getting there, riding the bike. So that's why everybody always goes to like a restaurant, 100 miles away or a coffee shop or something like that. I see that on posts all the time. Somebody's like, hey, I rode down to the whatever restaurant, and it's really, you just want a cool destination to go to. We're always looking for places to ride. So maybe I'll put some kind of cool ride together using secondary roads on Google Maps or something like that, like the Ghost Ride of West Virginia or something like that. I'll use some of that.
I'll come with you. I'll bring my Hot Wheels.
Yeah. Yeah, bring your bicycle and take like 3 months to do the circuit.
That's right.
Yeah. You still got a bicycle?
I do.
Man, those things are dangerous. You can catch me on one of those.
They're dangerous up here for sure. There's no place to ride
They're
them.
Dangerous, man. More people get hurt on bicycles than motorcycles.
That's what
that's the truth. That's absolute truth. More people get killed on bicycles because they can't keep up with traffic. People run over them all the time.
Oh, yeah. I wouldn't ride on a road around here. Are you crazy? We have students.
Yeah, oh, that's right. Yeah, you're in a college town. Oh, my God.
One of them's my daughter. And I got...
Yeah, even if they're not on a bicycle, it's dangerous. They just walk right out on the street staring at their phone.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, you ready to move on to tonight's topic?
Let's do this.
That is pretty neat, though. Yeah, be sure and post that map. So before we get on to tonight's main topic, I'm going to be a broken record and remind everyone to please rate and review because... Jimmy, you just totally went out of focus. Now you're back. So I'm not sure what you did there.
I don't know. I don't know how the internet works.
You either got all fuzzy for a minute or I'm like having a stroke. I don't know.
80% chance for one, 20 for the other.
I do have one more piece of news before we get started.
Ooh, yeah.
I do have one more piece of news. If you'll notice, I'm wearing the Barnabas Collins Dark Shadows t-shirt tonight. That's because Mary and I, my wife, finally finished the entire series of Dark Shadows.
Holy crap. So after wasting 3 years of your life, what do you think?
It was a lot of fun. We didn't watch it every day. We started, believe it or not, in December of last year. We think in November, December, somewhere in there.
Holy crap.
And yeah, at first, of course, the show was really good. Near the end, it really...
It's like 20,000 episodes of that thing, isn't there?
Really tanked. It was 1,245 episodes, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot of episodes. And at first, when we're really into it, we were watching 2 or 3 in a row, but then it got to the point where we're maybe watching 1 or 2 a week. Several days would go by that we didn't watch it. We sort of had our time if it worked out just right. we would sit down and say, hey, you want to watch Dark Shadows?
Okay.
But it was a lot of fun. It was
spoilers,
really cool.
spoilers.
Watching
What happened? What happened to Barnabas? Spoilers.
They all lived happily ever after.
Oh.
Except for the ones that died before the end of the show.
Well, yeah. I mean, you always have those guys. Fair enough. Well, congratulations on completing that badge of honor and all that. I'll give you a sticker the next time I see you.
Get a certificate or something. I mean,
I'll make up a certificate for you.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah,
So
I got your back.
But my wife, she really got into it, man. She there's all kinds of Facebook groups and all this stuff, and she's all into that, chatting. And they're all, did you notice in episode 752 that this happened? And it's a lot of fun. I mean, that's what we would do, is look up the episodes and check out all the bloopers and all the little behind the scenes stuff as we're watching them. So it was a cool thing to do. So anyway, they're I guess on the Internet Movie Database. The first 2 seasons are on Amazon, called Dark Shadows: The Beginning. Is what they call them. It's all in black and white, and then it didn't transition over to color for a year or two, and then all the rest of them are on the Internet Movie Database, all the Barnabas, because there was like 200 some episodes before Barnabas Collins got on there. In fact, the show almost got canceled, and the writers, they were making it more of a ghosty kind of gothic horror kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then the writers said, let's add a vampire. And that part was only supposed to be for a few weeks. And Jonathan Frid, the guy that played Barnabas Collins, actually had another job waiting for him in California, because they filmed it taped it in New York. And he was getting ready to move, had already made arrangements to move and everything, and thought this was just going to be a temporary thing for a few weeks, and then, go start his other job. And then it became so popular that he stayed on until the end.
Wow. Yeah. Steady work for an artist is sometimes a hard thing to get, particularly actors.
Sure.
Yeah.
I read one time that the most unemployed union in the world, I guess, is the Actors Guild.
Yeah, because anybody can say I'm an actor.
Well, anybody could pay their dues and be in the union. So it's like 96% at any given time is unemployed.
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, as I was saying before we went down the dark path of the Dark Shadows, please rate and review the podcast. It does help other people find the show. Check out our webpage now. Jimmy's been updating this thing just about every day. We have a web store on there right now where you can get, and we got the video format. He's getting ready to show a new item. Oh, we got the posters ready. If you're listening to us in an audio format, Jimmy unrolled the Cosmic Sponge poster. We have coffee mugs. We have T-shirts. We have the new water bottles that are lined with gold.
As much as they cost, goodness gracious.
Yeah, the cost on some of these items
cost us a lot to get these.
Yeah, but anyway, the graphic on the water bottle is different than some of the other ones. So It has an astronaut being mesmerized by the sponge monolith. So that's a neat graphic. Check that out. But there's also ways to support the show on there. There's something on there called Buy Me a Coffee. And when you go to our webpage on the home screen, if you look over to the right, it looks like a little coffee cup, a little to-go coffee cup. And if you click on that, there's different rates that you can click on to donate to the show. And we would greatly appreciate it, because it does cost us money to, make the show and to host the web services and do all the other things. So anything you could do to help us out, we'd really appreciate it. We also have the web store going on. We also have Facebook, where we try to post news stories on cryptids and UFOs just about every day, sometimes 2 or 3 stories a day. And Jimmy does a lot with Instagram. So those are pretty funny, usually making fun of me, as I've stated many times. Anyway, they're good for a laugh. So check all that stuff out. If you want to reach out to the show, it's firstcontact@cosmicsponge.com. Now, let's move on to tonight's main topic. And what we're going to be talking about tonight is William Rhodes Photographs. Now, if you don't know what this is, and frankly, I didn't know what this was until maybe whenever, when's the first time you heard about these photographs? They're from 1947. They've been around longer than any UFO photograph that I'm aware of. The first time I ever heard about them was on James Fox's documentary.
Yeah, the Phenomenon.
The Phenomenon, the very latest one he made. Mm-hmm. I never even knew they existed.
Yeah, I'd heard about them years before.
Okay. So Jimmy, I know you've done some legwork on this one. How about giving us a rundown on the William Rhodes story and photographs?
You know what?
we're not going to start with William Rhodes.
Nope.
On June 24th, 1947, Kenneth Arnold piloted his small aircraft by Mount Rainier and observed 9 unusual craft flying in the distance. He described them as disc-like, moving like a saucer skipping across water. From these descriptions, the press quickly coined the term flying saucer, then referred to these anomalies in the sky as such. Many other sightings across the Northwest were reported on that same day and in the weeks that followed. Arnold provided details to the Army Air Forces, including a sketch which showed a disc-shaped craft with a concave triangle carved out of the back of it. Little did he know that a mere 13 days later, and a little over 1,300 miles to the southeast, 2 photographs precisely matching his description would be captured in the wake of a thunderstorm passing through Phoenix, Arizona. And this is where we get to William Rhodes.
I just wanted to let listeners know, if you want to know more about the Kenneth Arnold story, back early in the show in episode 3 and 4, we did the history of UFOs. We cover in episode 1, part 1 of that, episode 3, we cover that extensively on the Kenneth Arnold story, if you want to go back and listen to that one. Please continue.
And we continue with Mr. William Rhodes. William Rhodes operated the Panoramic Research Laboratory and Observatory out of a workshop which sat about 100 feet from his back door from his home in Phoenix, Arizona. On Monday, July 7th, shortly after a thunderstorm rolled through the area, Rhodes was just outside his workshop when he heard what he assumed was a jet or approaching from the east. This was a common occurrence as the new P-80 jets, among other craft, were stationed at the nearby Falcon Field and often could be seen in the airspace over Rhodes' neighborhood. Aeronautics being one of Rhodes' many interests would lead him to take the time to observe these flights that occurred overhead. However, on this occasion, he witnessed something out of the ordinary.
Out of this world, maybe?
Possibly even out of this world. He immediately ran to his workshop, grabbed his camera, and was able to snap 2 photographs of the craft before it accelerated out of view, disappearing above the clouds to the west. Rhodes, excited, developed the film. Looking at the results, decided to contact the Arizona Republic, the local paper. He detailed the event over the phone and offered to provide his photos to the paper. The following day, on July 8th, the Republic sent a reporter to interview Rhodes and acquire some prints and at least one negative of one of the 2 photographs. The reporter, a Mr. Robert Hanika, sent the photos off to be examined by aviation experts in an attempt to identify the strange craft. Curiously, someone alerted the Air Force personnel from nearby Williams Field Air Force Base. The commander-in-chief of that base sent a counterintelligence special agent, one Lynn Aldrich, to the office of the newspaper to retrieve copies of the Lynn Aldrich to the office of the newspaper.
Again, man.
Yeah, the commander-in-chief. Words hard. The commander-in-chief of the base sent counterintelligence special agent Lynn Aldrich, this is what happens when you drink, to the office of the newspaper to retrieve copies of the photographs and to investigate the sighting. Aldrich collected the photos and completed his investigation, submitting the report to Hamilton Field and the FBI offices in San Francisco on July 14th. On August 28th, Aldrich is instructed to conduct a joint interview of William Rhodes in conjunction with the FBI. The FBI would send 2 agents to accompany Aldrich on August 29th. This would be the first government interview of Mr. Rhodes. After the interview, Rhodes agreed to turn over the 2 photographs that he had and a negative of the first image, but indicates he cannot find the second negative, which he either decided not to disclose or had forgotten that he had submitted to the Arizona Republic nearly 2 months prior. Special Agent Brower indicated that the photos would be turned over to the Air Force and that Rhodes likely would never get them back. The next day, Rhodes, having located the one negative and the copies of the uncropped photos, compiled and turned them over to the FBI, which in turn were submitted to Aldrich and finally to staff members of the newly formed Project Sign located at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. After the photos were examined by the Project Sign team, the second government interview would be conducted on May 11th by Lieutenant Colonel James Beam and Alfred Leading. In this interview, the Air Force officials would ask Rhodes for his camera and would learn from Rhodes about a second photographer who had snapped many more photos of the craft and of better quality. A third interview was requested by the head of Project Sign, Colonel McCoy, on May the 26th, 1948. Rhodes, however, would sidestep this request and recommend once more that they attempt to recover photographs which provide better images of the craft from Mr. Lewis Larimore, the second photographer he had mentioned in the previous interview. At this point, the Air Force would desist in their pursuit of additional interviews until the following year. Through the spring of 1949, the camera and photographs would continue to be examined by the Air Force. Eventually, Project Sign would be replaced by Project Grudge, leading to the involvement of J. Allen Hynek. Hynek recommended that the Rhodes case be reopened, and given that there were no astronomical explanation of the event, that the photographs bore a strong resemblance to the descriptions provided by the Kenneth Arnold sighting, they should investigate further. On May the 2nd, 1949, Colonel W.R. Klingerman, the co-head of Project Grudge, opened an investigation into Rhodes, attempting to uncover anything that could be used to discredit Rhodes, which was in accordance with the Project Grudge directives. After a thorough background investigation, it was determined that while eccentric, Rhodes was, by all accounts, an upstanding citizen who was well regarded within his community. The approach by the government did nothing to discredit Rhodes and would only serve to strengthen the legitimacy of the photographs in due time. On June 1st, radio celebrity Drew Pearson assisted Rhodes in an attempt to get his photos back from the Air Force. This attempt was ultimately fruitless, as the images could not be found through either ineptitude of a large bureaucracy or perhaps conspiracy to eliminate any evidence that would support a legitimate UFO sighting. Rhodes would, over the years, continue to recount his story to various outlets and publications, without alterations or embellishments, until his passing at age 90 in 2007. And finally, an excerpt from his obituary printed in the Arizona Republic touches on the breadth of his talents and achievements. William Rhodes, Ph.D., age 90, passed away January 22, 2007. Dr. Rhodes first came to Phoenix in 1929 from Fort Collins, Colorado, where he had been studying music at a conservatory. Dr. Rhodes was a developmental research physicist and prolific inventor who held over 40 patents. In addition to his musical studies, he had an ingenious interest in the sciences, and in his teens built one of the first remotely controlled model airplanes, which resulted in one of his first patents. In 1943, he designed and built a small electric car that had a range of over 100 miles and a top speed of 93 miles per hour. A true natural genius, he went on to design and build 3 large telescopes, of which 2 were used in Arizona, one at Kitt Peak near Tucson, and the other at the Lowell Observatory in Flagstaff. Discovered and mentored by the famous inventor Dr. Lee DeForest, who held over 300 patents, including the original vacuum tube, they later collaborated on several inventions, including the light amplifier for television. Dr. Rhodes had many lifelong interests, including being an early ham radio operator and solar scientist. Among his 40 patents are the oxyhydrogen generator or water torch, a water welder, Novid engine, and the mercury turbine power generator. He was the author of many scientific articles and several books on a wide range of subjects, including force field studies and magnetism. He's built and donated a delicate seismograph to ASU recently. So that, in a nutshell, is the William Rhodes story and his photographs. What do you think about that, man?
Thanks for joining us. That's this week's show. Yeah, he was an interesting individual. He had a lot of achievements, many more achievements, than the average guy. In fact, even one of those achievements would be something to be proud of. 40 patents? Something like that?
Something like that, yeah.
Pretty amazing individual. Yeah, after I looked into this one, I'm just amazed. When you think about the subject of flying saucers, right? It's like, even now, when they're seen, typically, I know there's triangular craft and all that, but usually it's the classic disc, right? The classic science flying saucer. It's round, lands on the ground, what have you. But the very first sighting, at least the prominent one, we know there was earlier ones and so on. But when we talk about Kenneth Arnold, where the whole term, the saying was coined, a flying saucer, wasn't about the shape. The shape of the craft was a delta, essentially, right? Mm-hmm. And when you look at any old photographs of Kenneth Arnold, there's some drawings. I have them right here on my computer. It's round in the front and then square on the back almost. So it wasn't perfectly round. So he has his sighting on June 25th, William Rhodes on July 7th. just a couple of weeks later, has his sightings and snaps the two photographs that look very similar to what's described by Kenneth Arnold. And again, Kenneth Arnold, the whole thing about the flying saucer came about from him saying that they moved like saucers skipping on across water. And then, the headline "Flying Saucer" came about. I don't know. I've always thought about that. It's like, why is that? Why did the very early sightings, there weren't the classic discs, and now they are? It's just something to think about. I don't know what to make of it. It's obvious that this craft is shaped, that William Rhodes saw and photographed, is very similar to the one Kenneth Arnold saw, as opposed to being a classic disc that we come to think of today as a flying saucer.
Yeah, the story is pretty interesting. That's probably one of the biggest standout things over time that is interesting. But given when it occurred, because the very next day, I believe, July the 8th or July the 9th, was the report of the Roswell crash. So the William Rhodes photographs really got lost in those two stories. The Kenneth Arnold story, which kicked everything off, and then the Roswell story, which sort of took over everything for at least a little bit until the government came out and said, nah, it wasn't anything, it was just a weather balloon.
Yeah. Well, and I think, too, where in those days a story had to be picked up by the wire, the AP wire, to really catch on across the country. And I'm not so sure that his story was. I think it remained kind of a regional, local story, is my understanding. So it was just never picked up by the AP, probably because after Kenneth Arnold's story was picked up by the AP wire and spread across the country, then all these reports of sightings started flooding in. And you're right, it was just lost in the stories. And again, especially with within weeks of the first kind of national consciousness of flying saucers or UFOs, then we have the Army reporting that they've captured one. And then, of course, the very next day, they said, no, it was just a weather balloon. So we're not going to visit that story tonight. Yeah, I've always been intrigued with that. And I swear, the first time I ever heard about this was on the James Fox documentary, like I said, a couple of years ago on Phenomenon. Whenever it came out, and it's brought out in the movie, Kenneth Arnold's daughter was being interviewed for the movie, and she had a copy of the photograph. It was given to Kenneth Arnold as a gift by the Air Force, by one of the Air Force officers, gave it to him, and she has it now.
One of the Rhodes photographs?
Yes. Yeah, and he wrote on the back of it, I don't remember verbatim or anything what it said, but something like, I guess, thanks for making your report. I don't know. And again, back then, the military was a little more open and forthcoming about information, and I think they were looking at it like a serious situation, unlike today. I mean, I guess since the Navy videos all came out, they seem to be taking it a little more seriously now, but not, then it was new. The military didn't know what to think of these sightings or these photographs.
Yeah, so there's several other really interesting things about this story that we probably should talk about. The first is that when Rhodes was first interviewed, he complained that the newspaper had gotten the incorrect altitude and speed of the craft that he had reported. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, how accurate is this guy's assessment of the speed and the size of the craft?
Kind of like a pretty smart guy.
Well, he was also an instructor for instrument rating, aircraft identification, and gunnery practice at Falcon Field. He spent his time during World War II at the Naval Ordnance Laboratory in Washington, D.C. He wasn't just a novice at this stuff. He taught it. So, I don't know. I would probably put him at the top of the list of, trained observers. Also, the pictures that were printed in the newspaper were printed backwards and cropped, which didn't include any of the other background information, which Rhodes intentionally got into the shot so that you would have the ability to come up with size and location.
Yeah, a reference point.
Exactly. So he had telephone lines, electrical lines in the thing, backgrounds of mountains or such. And
yeah, that's all we have now, or the photographs of the newspaper article. That's all we have now, because the negatives were lost long ago by the military or kept or whatever. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, they did a full write-up on both the images that they received. The Air Force did a full write-up on the images they received and of the camera. Everything that came back from that analysis basically said that this is a real object. It is in the sky. It is as William Rhodes had described it. Speed couldn't be ascertained, obviously, because it's not a movie. It's just 2 photos. But by all accounts, if anybody could determine the speed that thing was going, I would say it's probably Mr. William Rhodes. So the other interesting thing was the whole response by the government. By the time Project Grudge got involved in this thing, they were looking to discredit him. So they went to the Better Business Bureau. They went to all the they went to all the local groups and trying to find something to nail on him, and they couldn't find a single thing. He was no debts, in good standing everywhere. They even went to his neighbors, and all of his neighbors said, "Oh no, he's a great guy, stand up, good neighbor, good guy in the community."
Yeah, a little explanation if you haven't listened to our earlier episodes on the history of UFOs. Prior to Project Bluebook, the 2 predecessors, the official Air Force investigative group, was originally Project Sign. Now, it was to be called Project Saucer, but then they changed it to Project Sign. That group worked for, I think, a year or so, gathered all this evidence, really looking at the UFO phenomena as a true mystery. And what are these objects? What are people seeing? They had some pretty convincing cases that there was something other than just natural phenomena or hallucinations or anything like that. And now this is according to Rupert, who was in charge of Project Bluebook. He said that the final report made it to General Vandenberg, who was in charge of the Air Force at the time, made it to his desk in the Pentagon, which I guess said most likely not, but they left open the possibility that UFOs and flying saucers were visitors from outer space. They left it open. They said they didn't know what they were, that most cases can be explained, but there are a few. That is one explanation, that a possible explanation. And Vandenberg absolutely would not accept this answer. Didn't want that to be out in the public, didn't want that to be out in the Pentagon, didn't want that out at all as a result of this study. They disbanded that group, and the next group they put together was called Project Grudge. And Project Grudge, before Bluebook came along, really did exactly what Jimmy's talking about. They wanted to downplay every single UFO sighting as explainable. They wanted to discredit the witnesses. In fact, a lot of the witnesses that were accepted, they had this kind of criteria of witnesses, credibility, and witnesses before in very solid cases that had been accepted in Project Sign were not accepted in Project Grudge, for just really minor reasons, right? So, so that's what Project Grudge did. They tried to just, discredit people, try to prove hoaxes, say everything was either a hoax or natural phenomenon. And then they got disbanded afterwards, and Project Bluebook came along because another general said, look, you guys are not doing your job. We really need to find out what this phenomenon is. And that's when Project Grudge was disbanded, and finally Project Bluebook came along. It was a little more open at first, but then later on in the 60s really became kind of a public relations organization, just for people to call in and say they saw a flying saucer, and then them to kind of do what Grudge did, but maybe not quite as badly. But they say Project Bluebook in the 50s was pretty open with Rupert running the program.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's important not to take this whole Rhodes thing in isolation, because on one end of it you have the Kenneth Arnold sightings. But even from Kenneth Arnold up to the point where William Rhodes snaps his 2 photographs, we have a bunch of sightings, even the same day, within the same 24-hour period that Kenneth Arnold views these discs. They're seen from that point where at Mount Rainier all the way out west to the coast. Over the next couple of weeks, the next 13 days, you have even that July 4th weekend, the sightings spiked nationwide, including one of several simultaneous sightings of multiple discs by sheriffs in Portland and Vancouver, and a similar report by dozens of people in Idaho. Report generating the most news coverage that weekend would be the first sighting ever, or at least ever reported, by an airline crew in flight. That was reported on July the 5th, 2 days before William Rhodes took his photographs, and that was in the Portland, Oregon, in a Portland, Oregon newspaper.
Yep.
Airliner.
Yeah, they observed it. Yeah, they observed it for something like 30 minutes. I remember that case.
Yeah,
because that very airline pilot had been interviewed when because he flew the same route that Kenneth Arnold, close to the same route around Cascade Mountain and Mount Rainier. And he said, he probably just saw inversions, where snowy mountaintops can look like a reflection above in the sky and things, and just an optical illusion essentially, until he saw one.
Yeah.
and then him and the crew and the stewardesses and passengers all observed this thing for like 20 minutes, maybe.
Yeah, here's an excerpt. Reports of 2 to 20 fantastic flying discs over the Portland-Vancouver area Friday were confirmed by the crew of a westbound Boise to Portland United Airlines plane. Their report, detailed enough to shake the most incredulous, left them equally shaken. No object I know of could disappear so quickly, Captain E.J. Smith, veteran pilot of the plane, reported in an interview in Portland. He, First Officer Ralph Stevens, and stewardess Marty Morrow all saw the objects, which appeared to be 30 or more miles away, 8 minutes after takeoff from Boise at 9:04 p.m., and had them, 9 in all, under observation for an estimated 10 to 15 minutes. Seen from approximately the same altitude, the UAL crew could give no clue to their shape other than they were very thin, very flat on the bottom, and appeared to be rough or irregular on top. They are not aircraft. They are bigger than aircraft. Yeah. And so I thought that was pretty interesting. And then, you have William Rhodes has his article come out. In there he says, initially I thought it was a P-80. I don't think it was a P-80 since I have observed many of them over here. Also, the fact it made no other sound after the first pass over the house makes me believe it was some other type of aircraft. In its 3 flights over the house, there was not a sound, even when it zoomed into the southwest.
Let me throw something out there. So we know this guy's pretty smart.
Mm-hmm.
He invented a lot of stuff throughout his life and done all this 40 patents and everything. And when he was a teenager, had one of the first remote control airplanes in the country, right? Put that together when that was just a new thing, a new hobby or whatever. What do you think the chances are that that's a hoax?
Well, I normally would think that, but if you read the reports that came out of the Air Force of the one negative they claim to definitely have, though some suspect that they got the other negative from the newspaper itself when Aldrich first went to the newspaper, because that's definitely where the second negative went. But they had the first negative, and they had, uncropped images as well as the cropped images of the plane, and they said no, it was definitely a craft of the 30-foot range size. So I thought about that, but no, the estimate of the size, the diameter of the craft is 30 feet. The speed, the only estimates we have from that was 500 miles per hour, and that was provided by William Rhodes,
which would be really fast for an object in those days.
Right,
that would have been jet airplane speed. So I don't know what to make. I mean, all we have, are these really bad reproductions. I know for doing a video here that I keep looking over to the left. That's because I've got my laptop over here on this side with the photos up, and it's just or above us, right? I don't want to, it's obvious that it's just a photo taken out of a newspaper. I can even see the crease on it, and that's all we have. I wish before I got on here, I would have watched that little section of the phenomenon where she talks about that. Actually, I have that. I'll probably pull that up and watch it right quick.
Yeah, we have quite a bit of information from various researchers out there who have taken the time to really put together a very detailed background of this incident. The one interesting thing is Louis Larimore was the second photographer. He is lost to time, and there is no mention whatsoever of whether or not those photographs were ever collected by the military. They did reach out to him and did contact him, and that's all we know. The letter that William Rhodes writes back to McCoy when they requested another interview. He says, "Dear Sir, since I talked with Lieutenant Colonel Beam and Mr. Loading, I have been trying to run down additional photographs of the unidentified object. Mr. Lewis Larimore of the city has some in his possession, and I believe you can obtain copies of them by writing him. Whether or not they are real, I do not know. Some of them look faked, while others do not. The general shape of the ship as it was going away from me looked like this. There seemed to be a bubble on top and on bottom." Yeah, he's saying there seemed to be a bubble on top and on the bottom. That's interesting. William Rhodes submitted a drawing, and they said, "While the trailing edge looked open and black like a vent, I judged by past experience that the ship was about 1,500 to 2,000 feet altitude when it started to climb and was out of sight in the base of a cumulus within 5 to 7 seconds. Allowing for a little time for acceleration, this would put the object well past the speed of sound by the time it reached the cumulus." But with no sound, by the way, which is something we hear over and over again. This also might account for the fact that after the ship turned its nose up, the sound faded out altogether. Judging by my past experience with aircraft recognition, which I taught during the war, the ship couldn't have been under 20 or over 30 feet across. There were no rudders visible to the unaided eye. I couldn't possibly make a trip to the base because of current debts. I couldn't stand the loss of being away from my work. After September 15th, I could accept this invitation. And this was him responding to the request for him to drive to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base for an interview. And they were only going to comp him for, I think, a room, but not for the travel expenses there and back or food or anything like that.
No interstate system in those days either.
Yeah. From Phoenix to Wright-Patterson, that would have been a long trip.
Well, it just goes to show you they weren't taking it very seriously. They would have flown down there to see him, or he'd have flown, they'd have flown him over there, or didn't want to take it seriously. Yeah, I don't really know what to make of it, until we got into this. I mean, there's not a ton of information on it other than the description of it and those sort of things. It's a shame the original negatives have been lost to time, and it looks like the Air Force did consider them, at least at the time, to be some significant photographs. Some of the people in Air Force intelligence did anyway.
Yeah, Louis C. Gus was the one who did the review of the camera and of the photographs, and there's quite a bit that he wrote up about it. And essentially it just validates that they are photographs of an object as described by William Rhodes in the sky. That no funny business was going on, either in the production of the photographs from either the camera or in post-production, with the development of the film. So I think what we have here is a photograph of an unknown craft, the first possibly unknown craft in the skies over Phoenix, Arizona, and quite possibly those of Kenneth Arnold's sighting.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and again, I still find it unusual. We never hear of these type of crafts anymore. Much after that, everything went to the saucer shape, and it's sort of, I don't know what to make of that. Don't really know how to articulate what's in my mind. It's sort of like, well, after they started being called flying saucers, why did the craft start looking like round saucers,
Well, for me, it's like, how many photographs do we have really out there? We have this photograph, which seems to me to be the best photograph ever of a UFO, hands down, because it's got legitimacy behind it, more so than any other photograph I've seen. Now, the McMinnville photographs, possibly.
The McKinville,
right? Yeah, that one. A farmer and his wife taking those photographs. So that's probably the other one that a lot of people look at as being fairly legitimate. But this one, I mean, just given what was occurring in the skies at the time, that there were so many other people that had observed it, and you've got this guy, William Rhodes, who has a degree of credibility behind him. And he's a physicist, he's a scientist, he has 40 patents. I mean,
not your average Joe down at the coffee shop.
That's right. So maybe there's information I don't have that would discredit him to some degree, but I've not been able to find anything. Other than he did get married a lot of times. I don't know how many wives he had, but he had a lot of wives.
Well, maybe he was like one of those scientists that spent more time in the lab, too much time in the lab,
Well, he's a regular pianist at a local nightclub, and he was apparently very good. He was an incredible musician as well as,
So then he's in the lab all the time, and then he's out, gigging on the weekends on his piano. When's he have time for the wife, That's he'll ignore.
There you go. He doesn't have time for the wife. He's got time for the wife on the side. So,
yeah, I don't know. It is an interesting case you brought up. Yeah, I mean, I guess when you think about it, just from all the examinations of it, it seems pretty legit.
So I don't have really much other than I thought this was a really important case that I just don't see brought up enough.
Never. I never. I mean, if I'd ever heard about it before, I'd forgotten it. I mean, and I don't think I would have. It's really unusual to me as well that we don't hear about it more often, this case at all. First time I remember ever seeing it was in the James Fox film.
Yeah, if I were laying the case for legitimacy behind the UFO topic, this would definitely be in there.
Well, I don't really have anything to add to this. You got anything else on it?
Nope, I'm all good, man. That's all I have.
Okay. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up here. And two, really, if you want to, check out our webpage, cosmicsponge.com. Go on there, and if you want to learn more about the William Rhodes photo, especially, I know we flashed some here, but if you want to check it out yourself, read the story, there's a pretty good webpage on the whole thing.
We'll provide a couple of links for some really good...
Where I got a lot of my information. Saturday Night Euphoria.
Yep.
That was a real good webpage. It has a lot of the stuff we talked about on here.
Great title, too. It's The Mysterious William Rhodes.
So anyway, before we get out of here, I'd like to remind everyone to please rate and review the podcast. That helps other people find the show. If you want to reach out to the show, it is first contact at cosmicsponge.com. Let us know if you have any ideas or just log in and say hello. We'd love that. If you have a story to tell, we would like to hear from you. I have a story I'm going to do next week from someone. I didn't get all the details back yet.
I gotcha.
I had to ask a few more questions about it before I'm ready to share it on the show. Right. So also check us out on Facebook and Instagram. And on our webpage, we now have the web store, as we talked about at the first of the show. Ways to support the show. It's the little coffee icon called Buy Me a Coffee. So check that out. If you want to send us $1 or $2, we'd appreciate it.
Any money we receive is going to be put right back into the show to help us grow it. And I think very soon we're going to have a giveaway. We have some stuff that our friend Les O'Dell...
Am I getting something?
No, you don't get anything. You get nothing. But our buddy Les O'Dell provided us with a couple of signed copies of his book, which is awesome. And he surprised me with another item, which I'm not going to tell you about until we're ready to do this giveaway, which will be next week.
What is it?
I'm not going to tell you.
I can't wait.
I think we're going to give away maybe a mug.
I really don't know what it is, so...
I think we have another, like a Cosmic Sponge mug to give away, maybe a water bottle, perhaps a T-shirt. I don't know. We'll have something. But we're going to have a giveaway next time, so keep your eye out for that.
Keep those cards and letters coming.
That's right. Hey, Steve, what'd you eat for dinner at the hotel? Did you eat at the hotel?
No, I guess COVID and all that stuff, they closed the little restaurant bar down here, so I went down the street and... ate at a place called...
what are you doing?
I'm looking at the bag.
He's distracted. He's trying to read. It's always tough.
Well, it's just a receipt. I don't know. Something burger.
Something burger. I ate it. Something burger.
Or burger something.
Burger something.
It wasn't anything. It wasn't like, Burger King or whatever, but it's...
Was it good?
It was called burger something. Yeah, so yeah, it was pretty good.
So if you're in Richmond...
It reminded me a lot about Five Guys. It was the French fries and everything was just like Five Guys.
Yeah.
If you've ever eaten at Five Guys. But it was a little different, but about the same. It was okay.
If you guys happen to travel through Richmond, Virginia, eat at Burger Something.
Burger Something. I highly recommend it. I can't believe I can't think of it.
It's a dementia. You forgot your microphone. That's the least of your worries.
Good point. Yeah. So,
all right. I think we're done.
All right, then. Well, this is Stephen Hawk signing out, and we'll see you next week.
Jimmy Co. ditto. And I have my microphone.
Yeah, what about keeping your eyes to the sky and your feet on the ground?
Keep your eyes to the sky, your feet on the ground, and your microphone in your bag.
Yeah, that's right. All right, man. We'll see you next time.
Sounds good. Bye. That's all for this week's episode of Cosmic Sponge. Please don't forget to rate and review us wherever you listen. It helps others find the show. If you have any questions or have a story you'd like to share, you can contact us using our email account, firstcontact@cosmicsponge.com. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next week.